The old church bells rang slowly, their echoes rolling across the valley like a funeral song. Inside, a girl no older than 18 stood trembling in a faded cotton dress, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles turned white. The air smelled of candle wax and dust, and every breath she took felt heavier than the last. At her side, a man with hair as white as winter snow and lines carved deep into his face placed his hand over hers, his grip firm, unyielding. He was older than her father, a wealthy landowner who had lost 2 wives already, and now he had claimed her as his bride. The girl's eyes searched the small gathering of faces. Some turned away in pity, others blank with silence, and she realized there was no escape. The world had decided her fate, and she was to live it whether she wanted or not. Before we go deeper, dear listeners, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the strength of the human heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, The Gentle Truth. Your support helps us keep bringing such stories of hope and resilience. The first nights in his vast ranch house were like walking through endless corridors of shadows. The girl moved like a ghost, serving meals, tending to the fire, and retreating to a small room at the end of the hall. She expected cruelty, expected the man to claim her as possession, to remind her of the chains around her freedom. But instead, something strange happened. He barely spoke to her, ate quietly, and often left for long hours on horseback. When he returned, his boots muddy and shoulders heavy, he carried not anger, but exhaustion. He seemed haunted by memories she could not understand. Over time, the silence between them became its own language. She noticed how he struggled to rise from bed on cold mornings, his joints stiff with age. She saw how he kept a photograph of a young woman and 2 small children on his nightstand, his eyes lingering there before sleep. Once, she found him in the barn, staring at the rafters, his face wet with tears he thought no one could see. In that moment, something shifted inside her heart. He was not the monster she had feared, nor the cruel tyrant she had been warned of. He was a broken man, carrying grief like a stone around his neck. Still, the weight of her situation bore down on her. Villagers whispered whenever she went to market. Some mocked her, others avoided her. Children pointed at the difference in their ages, their laughter sharp as knives. The loneliness pressed in until she thought she would suffocate. And yet every time she looked into his tired eyes, she caught a flicker of something she did not expect: respect. He never forced her, never shouted at her, never demanded more than she could give. One night, during a fierce storm, the truth between them finally surfaced. The thunder shook the house, and she rushed to close the shutters. She found him by the fire, staring into the flames with a glass of whiskey untouched at his side. His voice broke the silence, low and fragile, as he confessed what no one else knew. His first wife had died in childbirth, his second of sickness. Both his sons had been taken by fever. He had been left with wealth but no family, land but no laughter, and he had agreed to this marriage not out of desire but out of desperation, for company, for someone who would not let the house echo with emptiness. The girl listened, her own tears falling freely. She realized she had been given away like property, but she also saw that in his own way, he too had been robbed by life. What began as fear softened into empathy, and in that moment, their union transformed from a prison into something else, a fragile bond, built on the shared pain of loss and the flickering hope of healing. As months passed, she began to care for him, not as a husband forced upon her, but as a companion who had been abandoned by fate. She cooked with warmth instead of duty, filled the rooms with small touches of life, flowers in a vase, bread rising on the hearth, quilts she stitched by hand. He, in turn, began to laugh again, a sound that startled them both the first time it happened. Slowly, the ranch house that once felt like a tomb became a place where life breathed again. The community, too, began to see them differently. When the crops failed one season, it was she who organized the neighbors to help one another, her kindness rippling outward. And when illness struck a nearby family, it was he who donated supplies without hesitation, his wealth used not to boast, but to heal. Together, they began to rewrite the story others had written for them. In time, love grew, not the wildfire of youth, but the steady warmth of a hearth that never goes out. She found comfort in his wisdom, and he found life again in her laughter. Though the years they had left together were fewer than most, they cherished them all the more deeply. For love, they discovered, was not measured in time but in tenderness. If this story touched your heart, dear friends, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to The Gentle Truth. We bring you stories of resilience, compassion, and second chances, and your support keeps this journey alive. Tell us in the comments, do you believe that even the most unlikely bonds can turn into true love? And so, what began as a cruel fate, a poor young girl forced into marriage with a man older than her father, became something no one expected. It became proof that the human heart, when met with kindness and patience, can transform even the most broken lives into a story of redemption, love, and healing.